who is the director of the Platform for International Cooperation on Undocumented Migrants. Please, the floor is yours, Michelle, for a report from the Civil Society Days.
Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, over the past days and together this morning in small working sessions with a number of governments, civil society has been discussing crucial issues which we feel define the realities faced by migrants throughout the world and where changes are needed in policies and practices. Our discussions have been grounded. We've sought to identify promising practices where change has been possible in recent years, using our 5-year action plan for collaboration as something as a starting point. So what we've tried to do is also identify targets and indicators of how we will measure progress in the coming years. And with that, I'd like to highlight 4 key areas for discussion, for reflection. The first one is migrants in distress. There is increased intention and convergence between governments and civil society on the need to address the situation of migrants who are caught in difficult situations. However, we have a lack of the common terminology. Terms such as migrants in crisis, migrants in countries in crisis, migrants in transit, migrants stranded in distress, and stranded migrants all mean different things to different actors. In addition to addressing the situation of migrants caught in countries experiencing disasters or war, states should also protect migrants caught in or experiencing other difficult situations, including death, disappearance, and physical abuses in transit and in destination countries. And this is an area where states and civil society can work together to monitor and gather data on this. Concerning migrants in irregular situations, we've heard and we witnessed that states are increasingly turning to criminal approaches to address irregular migration. However, there has been some progress on national level and progressive action. For example, some states, and it has been mentioned here as well, are exploring, developing, piloting alternatives to detention. Other states, including Sweden, have adopted laws providing access to fundamental services such as healthcare and education for migrants, regardless of status. We need to position the human dignity of migrants at the forefront of migration management policies. How are some of the actions that we can actually develop to see some changes? More channels for regular migration and targeted mechanisms for regularizing irregular migrants. Empowerment of migrants. This was a key theme of our discussions in all of the thematic areas, particularly of youth. But this is also especially with regular status. The repeal of laws and policies that prohibit or criminalize the provision of services and assistance to migrants regardless of status. Establishing a firewall so that service providers are not supposed to be immigration enforcement tasked officials. And also through our terminology and how we talk about migrants, that doesn't associate irregular migration with criminality. So we would suggest to use irregular or undocumented rather than illegal. Concerning protection at borders, the Office for the High Commissioner for Human Rights has drafted a set of principles and recommendations on the human rights of migrants and borders, which are derived from existing international human rights laws. This can be used when it is finally adopted, most likely this summer, as a tool by civil society and states for training of state actors concerning with protecting migrants' rights at borders, as well as judicial bodies. The second theme is labor, one of the most crucial areas that we're looking at concerning civil society as well as government. And what we have seen as progress is new platforms of dialogue, networking, and conversations between civil society in different regions and states in the multi-stakeholder context, also concerning the recruitment agencies and industries. What are some examples of this? New laws banning recruitment fees and passport retention in selected countries, new laws on promoting corporate social responsibility in the field of migrants' rights and global supply chains. Yet there's a need for strong political will, and I think that this was also mentioned on the opening panel. Strong political will towards ratification of relevant instruments, ILO Domestic Workers Convention, Migrant Workers Convention as 2 examples, as well as a specific call for states to adopt a protocol to the ILO Forced Labor Convention. And the other issue that came up consistently was not only ratification, but enforcement and implementation of existing standards. Another issue that was crucial is the actors that we are addressing here, municipal and city levels, was identified as a crucial actor not only for labor but for all of the themes that we were looking at. And how are some of the targets? How can we start measuring progress? Through the elimination of systemic policies and practices creating the conditions that enable employers to exploit and abuse migrant workers. Strong policy recognition for the role of labor unions, both nationally and internationally, including the right to collective bargaining, as well as data, strong comprehensive data. The third issue is children in the context of migration. We see an increasing presence of children in the context of migration at many different stages. Remaining in countries of origin if their parents migrate, traveling alone to seek better protection or a better life, or to be reunited with their parents in countries of destination, as well as children born to migrants in countries of destination. But what we must remember when we are addressing this issue in particular is that the starting point is first and foremost, these are children. And what we have is the 2013 Committee on the Rights of the Child adoption of 36 concrete recommendations for states parties to implement a child rights policy in the context of migration. And with near universal ratification of this important instrument, we can actually talk on the global level of a legislative framework for children's rights. So how can we start measuring progress on this? States parties reports to the CRC that highlight laws that provide access to fundamental services for migrant children, such as healthcare and education. Crucially as well, upholding the principle of family unity and non-separation of children from their parents. The CRC has also stated that the administrative detention of children is never in their best interest and is always a violation of their rights. So alternatives to detention must always be found for children and their families. But this is also which is very interesting, is that ending the detention of children is an achievable priority. How do we also see this? Because we have seen over the past 5 years, many states have actually started to do this. The last and final point, but definitely the starting point for many of the discussions, I think, in the coming days, is the post-2015 agenda. Mr. Secretary General, in your September 2013 statement to the GA, you said, "Leave no one behind." You highlighted how important migration and migrants are to the post-2015 agenda. In terms of key moments in the coming months, can you also make a strong emphasis and bring migration forward in your next synthesis report to the GA, which will come out in September of this year? Civil society has drafted a series of targets and goals that reflect and correspond the work of the Open Working Group, the DACA recommendations, and that build on the 2013 High-Level Dialogue Migration and Development Summary Statement. We would like to emphasize as a starting point that the dominant development paradigm produces inequalities that compel migration. And so we need to move towards a people and nature-centered, rights-based development and corporate accountability. Policy should consider migration in its entire complexity. What are some of the goals and targets that civil society has identified? National and international laws and obligations guaranteeing decent work for all. So all countries of origin as well as migrant workers in countries of destination, regardless of status. Ensuring portability of skills and benefits. Social protection policies should be publicly funded and delivered, and ensuring that migrants have access to health care, education, housing. Migrants' remittances are important contributors to family and community development when they are used as private transfers. However, and this is a point that civil society also underscored a lot, is that they are not the answer to development policies, and they should not be used as national policy measures for poverty reduction. We should work on a goal towards reducing the cost of sending remittances. Ensuring good governance and effective institutions, ensuring that migrants have access to justice, ending policies that criminalize and detain migrants, and also increasing participation in contribution and recognition of migrants in public policy planning and implementation. Empowering girls and women and achieving gender equality, creating stable and peaceful societies, increasing public awareness of the contributions of cultural, social, and economic contributions of migrants and diaspora. This would also tackle a lot of the negative discussion that we have concerning migration. And institutionalizing mechanisms that embrace and integrate or reintegrate migrants when they are returned to their countries of origin. And lastly, creating a global enabling environment for development with new partnerships, ensuring that migrants and diaspora are engaged as partners in the true sense in development. Civil society is increasingly being recognized by states as well as UN bodies, and I think that we've heard that very warmly on the panel, as a key partner in the dialogue on migration and development. We very much look forward to further recognition of how we as civil society can work in partnership with you to ensure that human dignity as well as accountability are cornerstones to policies on migration and development in the next 15 years. Thank you.